Hi there, all of you astrology lovers out there. This is Amanda Poole-Walsh. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Astrology Hub, and today I am here with Evolutionary Astrologer Natasha Alter. And Natasha is many things. She is one of the most beloved Astrology Hub astrologers. Whenever we do a talk, we get so much amazing feedback. She is also one of my dearest friends on the planet. I call her my fairy godmother. She's also like basically the fairy godmother for my two daughters. So this is a woman who is very near and dear to my heart. And we constantly find ourselves having conversations that we want to invite all of you to. And so we just said, you know what, let's start doing a series of Facebook Lives where we're sharing and we're engaging with you in a bigger conversation about astrology. So this series is going to be all about astrology in the Aquarian Age and how we can use astrology as a tool for conscious evolution. And so that's the big umbrella of what we're going to be talking about. There's a lot of different segments within that, but basically it's around astrology today. How do we use it? We're growing, we're changing. How does it grow and change with us? And where are some of the pitfalls that we want to make sure we're not recreating? And how do we become consciously aware of those things? So there's endless content, and Natasha and I are going to be on Facebook Live every other week, and we're just going to keep growing this series. So as you listen, if there's new topics that you want to hear about, please always be sharing those with us, and we want you to be engaged in this conversation with us.
Absolutely.
All right, so Natasha, let's start with astrology in the Aquarian Age as a big umbrella. Why are we choosing that topic?
I love the umbrella, actually.
Nice.
Well, why are we choosing the topic? We are actually in a little bit mini Aquarian age within the Aquarian age now. I mean, we just had nodes, lunar nodes that went into Leo Aquarius. And we are like heading toward this big epic eclipse. Which is gonna, repeat the theme. So we kind of having a little taste now, once again, being reminded once again. There had been many of those reminders where there's a lot of energy concentrated around Leo Aquarius axis. It's timely, it's pivotal, it's in the air, and that's why we're talking about it. I have to close this window because there's a lot of electric energy out here.
I love that. Electric energy. Okay, yeah. Natasha, so tell us, let's just start with some of your perspectives on how astrology is shifting.
Well, then, in order to understand it, we need to see where it's shifting from. We are coming from the Piscean age, Virgo Pisces axis. And so astrology within that context has been having a certain angle to it, of course, just because the consciousness on the planet has been within the Piscean, Virgo Pisces energy archetype. So what are we thinking about? Of course, in the kind of let's say denser expression of it, we're thinking about fear a lot when it comes to Pisces, Virgo. So if we think of that, then astrology would be oftentimes used from that, through that filter of fear. We are talking about Pisces, Virgo, we are talking about us humans being at the mercy somewhat of the external reality. That's another Pisces, Virgo kind of expression. So the perception of reality, the perception of the universe has been tainted by that angle, that we are the little humans here, we are impacted, bombarded by the waves of energies. We're a little speck in the universe, Virgo, Pisces, we are overwhelmed by all these divine kind of wills. And we're being somewhat puppets, in that context. So from that perspective, the perception of astrology would be following as, well, here I am being impacted by the planets. I am being, I got that car. That's interesting. That's a little.
We can't hear it much.
You can't hear it much?
No.
Then I can't hear it either. Let me close another window.
Okay. Thank you for everybody who's joining us. I see that we have some friends here. I want to say hello to, what are we talking about? Samantha says, we are talking about astrology in the Aquarian Age and how to actually begin using it as a tool for conscious evolution and how things are shifting. So as we're going from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, how does that shift look for us, and how does astrology need to change in conjunction with that conversation? So what Natasha's talking about right now is how in the age of Pisces, we kind of look at planets happening to us. We look at transits happening to us. We're at the mercy of this, these energies. And so how does that shift?
Well, let me just mention a couple of more elements because it's very important. They are very sturdy. They are kind of implanted in us and me. We all work with people. We see that element of fear and that kind of perception that reality is happening to us is still pretty prevalent. So we are inching out of it, we're slowly, gradually coming out, but it's very important to remember that when we use astrology, we have to bring our consciousness to it, which is Aquarian element, and understand that we are the ones creating, Leo, creating our reality. That it's no longer, us being at the mercy, us being a victim of circumstances, victim of our own chart, as a lot of old books, would actually imply, but we are actually co-creators.
Okay, it's confusing, I have to say, because, I remember a couple years ago going through just a very, very, very challenging time in my life.
Yeah.
I went to, I remember, I even told you this, Natasha, I went to several different astrologers to get their feedback on what was happening because I didn't like the answer. I would go from one astrologer to another, hoping that someone else would say something different. And they all said the same thing. So it's hard to grasp how we're not at the mercy of the transits and the chart. Like, how are we not if things are actually happening to us?
Okay, well, here we can use actually science, which Aquarius is standing for besides many other things, so if we're talking about moving into Aquarian age, science becomes very important element. Why? Because it's exponentially expanding. There is no longer like a division between physics and metaphysics. It's all merging together. So if we're looking at where science is going today and at what it's already talking about, it's talking about that the consciousness, Aquarius, creates actually the reality and not the other way around.
So basically our consciousness creates the ideal chart for us to have the ideal experience that our soul wants to have in this incarnation. And then we're choosing how to work with those energies. We can either use them to consciously evolve, or we can use them to feel like we're stuck and victims.
Exactly. I mean, it's all about our perception. Our perception of reality defines our reality and our destiny ultimately. The way we perceive how everything around us unfolds and why and what is our role in that will actually reflect itself in an actual circumstance and event. So this is we are already now talking Aquarian talk. Aquarius comes with that vast consciousness. Aquarius is where we are connecting to the other dimensions. We're popping out. We're like living the oh, we only exist here in this third dimension where everything is hard and slow and there is time and there is, edges to bruise by, we're starting to become aware that this is only one of many, many possible dimensions in this vast infinite universe. And this is science. This is not the woo-woo anymore. Quantum physics, the boom, boom, everything is happening everywhere at the same time.
Well, and it's interesting. So like Monique Lorink, who was one of our astrologers in Year of Astrology, was talking about how we actually have a different chart in the fifth dimension. So as we evolve in the third dimension, we are then born into a fifth dimension consciousness, and when we're there, we actually have a different chart. So
we'll have a different chart when we settle on Mars, which is going on right now. We're going to have a different chart. We're going to have a different chart the moment we leave.
I don't think I'm going to Mars. I'll just say that for the record. Maybe some people are going to Mars.
It's just one of the options that they disclose us to. But there are many other options, and there will be, and this is what Aquarius is, by the way, about, is connecting to these spaces outside of solar system. Aquarius stands for alien, it's alien. It's anything not of this earth is Aquarius. So this is why, there's going to be exploration and there's going to be expansion of humanity outside the solar system.
All right. I have a question. What would you say are some of the biggest limiting ideas that many of us are still holding on to within astrology that are being asked to shift now with our expansion of consciousness?
It's interesting. Our limiting ideas are going to be disclosed to us as we evolve. I feel like a lot of the ways we interpret the archetypes today is based on the old paradigm consciousness. If we open like 20th century astrology books, it's still written by people who perceive and filter their realities through that time and that paradigm and that, therefore, that interpretation. Now we are changing, we are expanding, our perception of ourselves and external reality is changing. Therefore, of course, with that will come unavoidably. How do we crack down what is this archetype is standing, or how do we choose to translate it into the human plane? And I think a lot of our limiting perceptions and the way we use astrology sits just right there. Okay, how do we view this archetype? A lot of that archetypal characteristics that were applied to it before are limiting. Just like I'm sitting in this box right now and talking to you. It's limiting. Why don't we question it? Why is this guy, this being, which is called Mars, has to stand for this? Who decided that? Like, what if we will use different terms? After all, again, Aquarian reality is that everything is a thought form. Everything out there is a thought form that turns into, ultimately, after a lot of, into matter. So what kind of thoughts are we accepting as forms, and how through our thought can we maybe change the form, or at least give it a different color?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I remember one time you were talking about Mars specifically, and how we've said that Mars stands for war. And so we actually, through our belief that that is what it is, we're actually perpetuating war because of its presence.
We will perpetuate exactly what we think is being valid,
Well, so I can just speak for myself. I think the reason why the conversation doesn't always go here is there's probably a lot of reasons, but one of them is that it feels so much less definable. It feels so much harder to grasp than what is it? If it's not these things that we learned are the definition of Mars, then what is it? And how do we actually get to that answer of what it is?
Right, right. And that's why I say it will take time for us as humanity evolving and opening up new layers within our own psyche, within our own consciousness to reframe, redefine what each it's archetype is. Energy is energy. Energy is neutral. You see, it's us humans who give it a characteristic, positive, negative, light, dark, all that polarity. Energy is energy. It delivers. The way we play and respond to it is our choice depending on where we are with the consciousness. So if you take Mars, by the way, I believe that because Mars has already been a center of a lot of aggressive energy in the past, we're still hanging on to that story, and we're still projecting that energy, and we're still believing. Therefore, we're holding on to that definition, and therefore we're acting it out. But it's old. It's old. It doesn't need to hover there anymore. I mean, the war is many things. The war is just one expression of that massive, beautiful, activating energy that Mars is channeling. So for us to get out of this kind of default response, we need to open up our consciousness. And we're still going to be using the Aries archetype, but how do we use it creatively? Again, Aquarius, Leo, creative use of consciousness, right? The Aquarius age is also a Leo age. It's Aquarius, Leo are inseparable. And therefore, if we bring Leo in, it's creation through consciousness, which is perfect. This is what we're doing here anyway. We might as well be aware of that.
Okay.
So, you see how it can be revolutionized in a way, the way we play with the planetary energies, how we can become co-creators rather than like, oh my God, I got this thing in the chart, I am doomed. How much fear and how much dependency and disempowerment can be removed once we start understanding that we are all simultaneously playing out this game together.
All right, so Natasha, I'm needing an example. So can you give us an example of something that might be interpreted in an old way that would feel disempowering and limiting, but that we could shift if we just looked at it through a different lens? It could be used in a different way. Okay,
you want me to jump a little bit ahead of myself because I am right now still in the process of feeling and tuning in what is old and what is oh my God. Okay, let's take the good old Saturn. I mean, it's one of those players where the limitations is already in, as comes as a nice.
Well, yeah, Saturn is about limitations. Yeah.
So let's take Saturn, for instance. Of course, Saturn has its role. Otherwise, there wouldn't be matter. We wouldn't be thick, like right now. We wouldn't even need to talk. Like there would be hardly any form because that Saturn keeps this third dimension kind of like a little bit together, I guess. Well, let's say one of the old perceptions, it's in the chart is going to be a father. Besides other things, besides the sun, let's say, there is like that old thing, the stern father. Okay, I know what it means. However, are we really going there and going to be playing out as humanity where the nature or our perception of masculine and feminine is actively now changing as well? Where the father role or what the fatherly archetype is changing fast, where the men and women are rethinking the whole role playing within the family, within the rearing of children, you know. So all of that all of a sudden starts moving. Are we still looking at that archetype from that perspective? Are we still going to play it out? If we think that that's what it is, we are going to sure be born into that reality where we're going to bring in that, you know, certain father or whatever, if we believe that this is still relevant. You see what I mean? Do
Yeah.
we as humanity need to keep playing out this quality?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I want to actually invite the viewers. Are there other qualities like what Natasha brought up with Saturn and the stern father that we would like to begin redefining along with our viewpoint or perspective as that's shifting? Perhaps there's other things that need to be shifting as well in conjunction with.
Well, I think it's also, it goes both ways. As men, as the feminine masculine energy on the planet is defining itself, you know, as the balance is kind of being recreated slowly, but it goes there. Then the behavior of the archetype of the feminine and masculine is going to be expressing itself. It's going to be different. You know, we're no longer going to be holding on. I mean, talking about Aquarian age and Aquarian, it's like, it's so much more equality of the gender that is going to be happening in the Aquarian age. You know, Aquarian energy knows no hierarchy. You know, it's anything but hierarchical. Therefore, it's not going to be over under, and we're going there no matter what. It's unavoidably slowly, but well, we do. So it means that as we are stepping into new expression of the feminine masculine archetype, are we still going to, how are we going to perceive the energies of the good old planets that are used to be corresponding to? Or the moon? I mean, we talked about the moon. I don't even want to go there because it will open a Pandora box, but yeah.
Well, someday we need to go there, but for now, Maya says Venus in Aries for women.
Again, like I remember, I have Venus in Aries. I remember I opened the book it was already in 21st century, but the book was written by somebody at the end of 20th century. I opened the book, it's like, oh, Venus is not good for, Venus in Aries is not good for a woman. And I'm just starting to to learn astrology. I'm just starting to try to understand myself. And I'm so excited all of a sudden. It's like, wow, I am a woman and I have that. I'm doomed. I can never be a woman, you know? So all of a sudden, you know, there is an old voice from the past, which is like suggesting, oh, you cannot be feminine when you have Aries, you know, sitting in your Aries. And this is all, you know, invented. It's in another thought form. It's another old, like.
Well, it's definitely, it's perpetrating an old definition of what it means to be feminine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that what it means to be feminine for us on this planet is changing. Therefore, our interpretation of planetary positions and placements is bound to change. We can't teach our children, you know, like you have daughters, you don't teach your daughters the old principles of how to be a woman, you know, in the Piscean age. The submissive kind of a passive, victimized kind of a archetype is gone. So therefore, all of a sudden, Venus in Aries becomes, yeah, baby, a warrior woman, of course.
Oh, wow. That is fascinating. Okay. So we have, Adrian says, perhaps another generation or two for this new perspective to take hold. What do you think about that?
At least. It's like generation or two is quite a short time in the context of, ages and or the larger rhythms of the universe. But yeah, I mean, from our perspective, it's slow because we are sitting here in Saturnian, time, linear slow. But it is, a few generations, when it's gradually the old will no longer has place to be in this new reality.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Just like you said, I have my two young daughters, and I was teaching at their hula camp this week, and there were some teenage girls around too, and they were wearing shirts that said things like "different is beautiful" or be you, be unique. And I was thinking, wow, that did not exist when I was growing up. That messaging, that sort of empowerment, the redefinition of beauty, it was like, there is one way to be beautiful and you better do everything you can to be that, So, but I was just thinking, I was marveling at how different their lens will be as they grow up with those kinds of messages being reinforced, both in pop culture and just, with their mothers and our community. And, and they will have, like, they won't even be able to understand some of the hangups that we've had as we're trying to shed a lot of that old programming. They don't even have to deal with it in the first place.
And they are going to be the new astrologers who are going to be coming out with new books, writing new story, reinterpreting, getting new channelings.
Heather says Wonder Woman is like Venus in Aries. So I don't know.
Somebody obviously is enjoying their Venus in Aries. Good for you.
Yeah. Okay. So Deborah says, I feel we are all moving beyond every traditional labeling of masculine and feminine, partly reflected in the new ideas of reading asteroid goddesses in astrology, going beyond balance and equality.
True. Going beyond balance and equality?
Yeah. I'm not quite sure what she means by that, but basically saying that we're redefining that right now.
Right, and the goddess asteroids are spearheading it because we need to kind of remember what the true feminine is first, seems to be, because feminine, this is a feminine kind of a creation itself is a feminine expression of the divine, so it looks like women need to remember what they are first and the masculine will follow. There's going to be a lot of redefinitions. That's why we're like having all these goddesses coming and teaching us once again, but then the masculine is going to follow, and masculine is going to follow, and all these masculine archetypes will have to reinvent also and work together with the new reality. So, and it's very, very, very relevant to astrology because I remember when I was learning astrology with the old kind of books, a lot of that was so many hang-ups around what's masculine, what's feminine. And I was like, who determined that? Who decides that, So I hope that these new kids are going to be writing whole new books on astrology.
Definitely. Deborah says, we have been seeking sexual equality, but we will move beyond that to no longer need to seek equality. I agree.
Because equality is
inherent understanding that we are, of course, equal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So, a couple questions here. Or a couple comments. So Liv says, release the Saturn aspects within ourselves, see Saturn within, and dissolve it or bring into balance so we do not project thoughts or beliefs with this Saturn energy. So, the way I interpret that, Liv, is almost like doing the shadow work, where we see the aspects of we see that, I'm going to use shadow loosely here, aspect of ourself, and we become aware of it, and so that it's no longer projected out into our external reality. We're not experiencing it anymore because it's the light of awareness has been shown on it within ourselves. True. Does that make sense?
True. Awareness, again, it's an Aquarian principle. It's an Aquarian energy, like coming into the field of astrology. So awareness will get us far.
And it seems like that's the step that we're at right now.
Yeah.
In terms of this redefining astrology? Or so where do you see the usefulness of the old astrology? Like because, there's people that are translating Babylonian texts and, going backwards to find answers about today.
I actually do it a little bit myself, going backwards, not in astrology. I'm not researching ancient astrology. However, I look backwards to the ancient sources of knowledge to understand the reality today. And for me, I do it because I just have a feeling that we have lost a lot of our centers of awareness, or let's say our perceptions and our consciousness have been densifying with time, and our abilities to connect to multidimensionally has been also closing off with time. So I'm going back because there were beings who were far more open to the universal knowledge, and via different channels, whether direct contact or teachings from whoever would be coming and teaching, or it doesn't matter. But that's why. So I think that when astrologers research the ancient, maybe that's the same motivation, is to find these gems of consciousness and perception and awareness, that was, let's say, accessible at certain time, and then it became less accessible just because of where we went with ourselves. So and of course there is validity. I mean, it's not like we're going to be discarding the classical or ancient astrology. I mean, I remember being at the class of orrery astrology, which is an old technique, and it was darn to the point. It's so perfect and precise. So it's not like we are going to change the way the celestial dance is happening and unfolding. It's everything. Most of what's happening is about our perception and our response, right? Is how do we interpret what is happening? Are we ready to work with it? Out of fear, or out of the readiness to step into new growth and territories, You see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I want to invite everybody who is tuning in right now. Have you had that experience where you could have perceived something as a negative thing happening to you, but you used your conscious awareness and your ability to choose a response to turn it into an opportunity? If you would love to share in the chat, that would be really interesting to hear about, because that is the practice. I think that's the daily practice, that what is coming to us in our lives, that when we have that attitude of like, okay, this is happening, and how am I going to respond, and can I grow from this, and can I learn from this, and can I become better from this? Not always easy, but when we can be in that frame of mind is more often than not, then I think that's when we see a massive progress in our lives and in
exactly.
our
Then we are actively co-creating with the planetary energy, rather than being a victim of whatever is coming through in our charts. And this is the Aquarian perspective, is once we realize that we are creating this reality, our own reality, through our consciousness, and through, let's say, the expectations we came into this incarnation with, then everything all of a sudden becomes much more peaceful. So we are squeezing out the juice of learning and evolving, rather than sitting in the fear and contraction. And that's how working with the, let's say, energy of transits can be completely transformative, is when we are working with those energies, actively showing up and maximizing the learning potential from each transit.
I love how you say that. The transits are like these portals where there's this opportunity for us to learn something like pretty specific, and that it's like this. If we took the attitude of like, okay, it's only 6 months, like I need to actually use this time because this is what's up for me, and so if I can learn it, then I'm going to be able to continue to move and grow beyond it, versus like, oh my God, how long is this transit going to last? It's so painful. It's so brutal.
Right.
When's it going to be over? Which I know I've been there too.
Yes, true. And it's okay. We're human, it's still, the
Yeah.
Saturn realm, so it's still painful. And
Yeah. Okay. So Bonnie says, having survived cancer 3 times, I have found it less of a cross to bear than gifts to learn from and work with. Deborah says, I try to look at every aspect of my chart and ask, why did my soul choose this? What am I here to do with this energy?
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. Patty says, yes, I was able to stay centered in a horrific divorce with all his negative, terrible vengeance that he threw out at me. I refused to go there and stayed centered and did not allow him to make me respond the way he wanted or expected me to. And Heather says, I've experienced that phenomenon. My self-talk was extremely negative regarding my current romantic relationship. I heard it, but recognized I was responding from my old script. It didn't match what my reality was. I was able to open up to my boyfriend about this and explain my experience. It was revelatory to speak my truth and be heard. So yeah, so Natasha, when you talk about astrology in the Aquarian Age, is this, scratching the surface of what you're meaning by it?
Pretty much. But we are like introducing a subject that we are going to be following up on. We're going to be talking about it because it's simply the time. It's time to do that. It's time to open up a new conversation. I feel it very strongly, and I do have kind of strong Aquarian connection in my chart. So I do feel that we need to start opening new vocabulary, even within astrology, because the words are very important, and the words can impact people. The words can paralyze people sometimes. So we got to be very, and again, it's Aquarius, right? The air, the way we communicate out our perceptions, our awareness formed within the words is very powerful. So yeah, it's just, we are scratching the surface. However, we are not nicely riding on that way. And there is so much to look into, within this umbrella, there is so much to look, I hope that we will keep talking, and I hope there will be other astrologers also joining us in the conversation, of us together, bringing up our observations through time, our contemplations upon that topic. And I'm sure there are a lot of astrologers who are thinking and have been already working on it and coming up with new definitions and new suggestions and new experiences, therefore. So yeah, I think it's a very important, and I think we can start getting going and activate that field. Aquarius Leo axis. In the Aquarian age, we're working with Aquarius Leo axis. We can't cut out Leo because otherwise we are fragmentizing the one line, which is one. It's a different size of the same energy. So where was I going with that? With the Leo Aquarius present, we are craving sovereignty, and we are craving to be in charge of our destinies, to be creatively in charge with of our lives, versus Virgo Pisces, where we are in the big ocean of the unknowable divine, where we are just moving with the waves. So we're craving that understanding, we're craving sovereignty. awareness, we need tools, we need knowledge, we want to be masters, we want to be on top of it. It also brings responsibility for our actions, for our thoughts, for our thought forms, you know. So it is a big theme and it's a big movement, and we want to understand why are we the way we are, and we want to assert our uniqueness through Leo and Aquarius. And that's why you saw the little girls wearing those shirts, I'm different. This is the wind of Aquarian age, the Aquarian kids, you know, like, I am different and I have so much fun with it.
Yeah.
Right. So astrology gives us that tool where we can actually look at our chart, we can study it, we can understand. We don't need anybody to tell us who we are. We are coming back to ourselves on our own oftentimes. You know, the external deities of Piscean age are kind of losing their power on us, and they're going to be losing it. And our movement is back into our direct connection with the infinite, right? With the infinite creation. So astrology comes right in and it's like, let me see let me have a help of understanding who I am, why I am, and claiming it and embracing it and loving it and growing with that and through that.
Beautiful. Yeah. Donna Woodwell was saying, we were having a conversation about why this has shifted. Well, she was talking about the word daimon, which was your relationship with the planets, and how
Donna Woodwell?
Yeah.
Okay.
And how the church came in and actually changed that word to demon. Like, it literally demonized our direct connection with the universe. And so it's been in the shadows. It's been, put aside, but Astrology Hub's tagline is ushering in the golden age of astrology. I mean, we see astrology and our connection with the universe and our connection with that divine intelligence as basically our birthright that we're all waking up to and remembering that we have. And astrology, in that conversation, it seems impossible to have the conversation without having astrology a part of it, which it always was.
Exactly. And, Aquarius Leo axis doesn't tolerate control over itself, So astrology gives you that place of mastery and being your own king, you being in charge, creatively in charge of your life.
But one of the things that does need to be shed, obviously, is the fear-based astrology and also our response to information. Because I even find within myself, there's certain information I'll hear about a transit coming or about something happening, and my initial response is like a contraction and a fear, and I'm like, oh no, what's that going to bring? So I think that's a practice that each one of us can internalize, is meeting the information without that charge. And I'm probably more the process would be recognizing the charge is there and embracing that and loving it, but knowing that we're being asked to move beyond that kind of fear-based response.
Well, the fear-based response will have consequences. It will create a response.
Right.
And it can be, our perception tends to materialize. Our unconscious and conscious expectation tend to prove themselves out there in the so-called external reality. So, and that's again, Aquarius comes in and teaches you that whatever we expect of reality will actually be proven. So we better take care of our conscious processes. And again, fear is powerful, and it's not like, I don't have fear or something. It's just, again, we're still human. However, there is so much advancement that can happen once we start embracing astrology and astrological influence from a whole different place. We can just dance together rather than just, being swayed. without having any say.
Yeah. Okay. So Sid Cell asks, is it in 2020 that the Aquarian Age starts?
Why I don't know about 2020. I mean, I don't know why would that be. I think
Well,
2020.
I think there's what I've heard is there's debate about when the Aquarian Age actually starts. Has it already started? Is it still, is it a long sort of like transition into it? Is it going to happen later? Like, where are we at with when it starts?
There are so many different opinions on that, I
Yeah.
guess. I, to me, it's more what I observe out there, what I observe, what are the trends and what has been happening. To me, it actually has been happening already for a couple of 100 years, if not more, because it takes a while to transition. I mean, if we think about over 2000 years of prevailing like a mantle around the planet of certain archetypal kind of a behavior, it's ingrained in our cellular memory. We are slow to change. So it takes a while to transition and integrate new principles. It doesn't happen in one generation. It doesn't even happen in two. It doesn't happen overnight, of course. So to me, it has already been like coming in and then back and coming in with French Revolution. And then, all of a sudden in other different parts of the world, all these Aquarian trends showing up. I was born in Russia, the communism, it's like a little utopian society, all of that. It has been discovery of Uranus, by the way. It's like all of that, to me, it has been already coming slowly in. And what I'm feeling now is just being accelerated. It just takes a whole new speed right now. Everything is accelerated, yeah. So
Okay.
to me, we've already been in it for a while, but yeah, maybe not. But it's also it doesn't really matter because we're that's where we are heading in this linear time anyway.
Awesome. Okay, so for those of you who have been listening in, I would love to hear your feedback. So Natasha and I are planning on every other week having conversations about the evolution of astrology, the evolution of consciousness, astrology as a tool and a guide as we continue to evolve, and how we can actually use it very practically. So if you're interested in this conversation, just give us a yes and we'll continue doing it. If there's anything specific that you would love to explore with us, then we can receive that as well. So if you have any feedback, any questions, any topics that would be really interesting to explore, like I said, Natasha will be with me every other week, and I want to bring other astrologers into this conversation too. So
Right.
bringing astrology into that golden age, so it can actually be the usher of the golden age of astrology. That is what we're focused on, and growing astrology with our own growth and evolution as human beings. So
Exactly.
it's a big conversation and we're excited to be having it with you. And thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. It's been really wonderful to connect again. We took a little break from Facebook Live, so really great to be back with you. Natasha, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom with us. It is always an immense pleasure for me to share this space with you.
Thank you for holding such amazing space. Thank you, Amanda.
All right, everybody, take care, and we will talk with you soon.